Welcome to the Serene-ish podcast. We're two friends trying for serenity, but life happens.
I'm Larissa.
And I'm Brenda.
And we're glad you're here.
Each week we share honest conversations about navigating everyday life, faith, relationships, soul care, and all the messy in-betweens.
You'll hear reflections, a little laughter, and hopefully encouragement to find peace in your own journey, even if it's just serene-ish.
Larissa.
Brenda.
You copied my outfit today. Or did I copy yours? Oh my goodness.
Folks who cannot see us, we'll post a screenshot or a photo.
We
have a Substack, but we're wearing the exact same white and red floral prairie.
Okay,
dude,
do you have this little...
Both of ours has a tie.
No, you don't. It's a tie in the middle too.
Okay, and also we look cute in our glasses. Larissa's little, I have a Band-Aid on my chin because I have an injury. Anyway, and then we have matching mugs today too. Black mugs
here we go.
of
Cheers.
tea.
Cheers with our black mugs and...
Cheers. It's Prairie Day for these ladies.
Oh my goodness. Is that going to come up? Are they going to hear that I just sipped my... I have hot lemon water in mine. What do you have in yours?
Mine is lemon ginger tea.
Okay, really?
We're the same person
We
today.
are literally the same person today. Okay. I love it. Well, my friend, we're going to...
Well, here we are.
Yeah, we're going to dive into something. But before we do, let's just do how we've been kind of doing in the past. Let's just start on the lighter side. One is that we are the same person. You're just on an island. And, but yeah, other than that. But what is something that maybe you either read online or saw online or something that made you just pause and say, wait, did they really just post that? Have you
Right.
Other than the obvious, okay. But what we're going to talk about, but something else.
Right. We're talking about online things that make us go, what? This is the theme for today. The thing that came to mind, so I'm usually not on TikTok.
Okay.
I think I have an account maybe, but every once in a while, somebody I know will send me a clip on TikTok. Did you see this? You know what I mean? And so recently a friend sent me something, and even I think they were like, this is wild. That was their comment. And then they sent me a little video. And I'm like, okay, when this friend sends me these things, I know it's going to be funny and I know it's going to be awful. You know what I mean? Like a blend of funny and awful. And it was, the video was a woman. She was maybe 20, 25. She was sitting in a field and she has a drum on her lap. And just a one single, drum. And she's wearing those old Native American costumes that maybe kids wore for Halloween back before they realized it was pretty terrible.
Right.
A grown woman on TikTok was wearing feathers in her hair and fringe leather vest. She's banging on this drum and she's singing a song in Hawaiian, but she's not Hawaiian, clearly. She's not in Hawaii. And her, the way she's pronouncing some common language in Hawaii was terrible. And then she goes on, she's singing her song, beating her drum. And then she goes on to explain this a Hawaiian concept that's it's a real word and a real concept. But it's her explanation is incorrect.
Oh.
And she, when somebody is positioning themselves as an expert on whatever they're talking about, that's right. How it came off. And so I'm watching this, I'm like, oh no. And so, my friend and I were texting back and forth, what is this lady doing? And what is she thinking? And anyway, I didn't even go into the comments section on her you know what I mean? It's going to be just a hot mess.
It's a hot mess. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have been guilty of seeing certain things and then immediately going to the comment section.
Sure.
It's like,
sure.
That's where the party is at.
That is where the party is.
In a bad way. Oftentimes I've walked away with the feeling of that was a poor decision to go to the comment section, but yes.
Right. But sometimes it feeds the humor. Totally.
It almost helps you to kind of like, okay, all I can do in this situation right now is laugh because this is absolutely ridiculous, but yeah, no.
All right. So what have you seen recently?
Gosh, there's one that comes to mind that is just like, I can't believe it was said. More of like, I know that this is true. I just can't believe they actually said this out loud. And it was someone talking about like tracking people's tithing and giving. And they said, this is like a leader, I guess in a way, like trying to like disciple other people, that it's good to keep track of your congregants' tithing and giving, and gave a list of reasons. And one of the reasons was because you really want to pay attention to your high givers and to give them like special attention because of how much they're giving. Right?
He said it out loud.
And that just felt so icky that
but this was posted he posted it himself.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I can't, and it was in the context of, I guess, trying to help other leaders or pastors when it's like how to navigate the whole tithing and giving and all of that. And the whole idea of like keeping track, like, being a good steward of your money and all of this and that and the other. But this particular one was about, it helps you to see who the high givers are. And, an example was like, there was, I guess, someone who was a high giver, and because they never got acknowledged or something, they just felt like really hurt. And you should, really want to like appreciate them. And so I did go into the comment section on that one, and there were those who agreed. They like agreed with him, and then there were those who pushed back and just said like, what's the metrics? How are we determining what is somebody's like capacity for giving? What should be, celebrated more than the other? And then obviously there's this story about the woman giving her like the last few pennies and everything. And so, it was, yeah. And the thing is, I know it's true, right? I think there's a lot of us who've
that one feels scenes. Like it kind of pulls the curtain back and you see the actual mechanisms, which of course it's probably not everybody, but that is a way that institutionalized religious, organizations can run. And that's interesting.
That was one that was like, I just can't believe they said that, And the other, my favorite one is the one when people talk about exhaustion is just a mindset, that you're exhausted because you're not in your lane and, living out your purpose, and that exhaustion is just a mindset. I'm like, okay, we're going to keep moving on from that. Keep moving on. All right. Well, here is the definition of Serene-ish, is that we're going to engage in a conversation that could feel kind of heavy, but we came into it already laughing and talking about our outfits and everything, and our lemon tea in hot water and lemon, because there's some times that you look at things and you just have to allow your whole body to help you navigate how you're going to hold the thing, right? And you can hold it with there's a seriousness to holding it, and there can be laughter in the midst of the seriousness of holding it. And, the two actually can complement each other. And so today we're going to be stepping into something that is not serene at all, but it's very real. A few weeks ago, Donald Trump made an offensive post about Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, that many of us have named as racially charged and deeply harmful. And so today we want to just talk about, our experiences. Maybe we're going to get into some of the spaces of the racist history that gives context to moments like this, why these kinds of comments land differently in BIPOC communities, and how we process, respond, and stay grounded when public rhetoric reopens these old wounds. And you'll probably hear some of that coming up in the midst of us talking about how we really want to approach this is as two people. And I know we were joking about how we're the same person, but we are actually different people, and how the two of us navigated this whole moment of seeing this, and what this looked like for us purposefully. And just so like our listeners know, I know we're talking about this a few weeks out, but we made that conscientious decision, right, Larissa, to wait on that. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Right. I mean, in live time, when the thing actually happened, you and I had some conversations, some texting, in our real life response, right? And we're good friends, and so we were talking about our feelings in real time. We also said, this might be an interesting conversation to continue to have and open it up onto this podcast later, with giving us ourselves some like space to breathe, to respond well, and to just process. I mean, when things happen in live time, processing happens in lifetime, of course, but right, with anything in life, as some time passes, feelings feel different, thoughts feel different, perhaps more discernment. Not always, but right, like I think you kind of arrive at maybe a different place. So I feel like us having this conversation today, a few weeks out from the actual event, it kind of gave us, it honored our own sense of what was happening and how we wanted to talk about it together, just the two of us. And now we feel like it's had some room to breathe, and this is us just opening up maybe further conversation. So I hope it's helpful for folks who are listening. I think it's going to honestly be helpful for me just to even like kind of revisit like what happened and how was it for us and how did it impact you specifically, my friend, right? So I think I don't know. We'll see where this conversation takes us. I'm excited to have it. And I feel like this is a good time to do it.
Yeah. No, and I agree, because as I was, like you sitting with this, getting ready for us to have this conversation, I tried to do more like soulful reflecting. And how did my body navigate this? What kind of thoughts were coming at me? What emotions did I feel myself embodying? And the journey and those few days afterwards, what I was coming into. How do I feel about it now? Has anything changed now? Right? And because retrospect, there's things that you can learn. And is there anything I would have done differently? Not like, places of regret, but like, how can I grow in all of this? And so in the moment, there were some things that I felt were important for me to do, but I was really grateful that as you and I talked about it, that we were both on the same page of let's give ourselves the space to show up for ourselves and for those closest to us, and then any other way that we're feeling we need to do it. But then there's some other spaces that we wanted to give it more time. And so I am really grateful to be connected in this with you, that we could just be on the same page when it comes to giving time for discernment and giving ourselves some space to breathe. So let me ask you, when, how people ask, like, do you remember where you were and what you were doing when, they landed on the moon? And I know that there's some who maybe don't believe that we've landed on the moon, but that's probably another conversation. So
that's a different one.
That's a different one. But so where were you and what were you doing when you first saw the whole debacle of a tweet and an image?
Yeah, I think for me, I think I've said this to you and probably to our somewhere in our podcast conversations, but I'm not super on social media. I'm a little bit. So I'm a little bit on social media, and I primarily like to get my news from my actual physical newspaper. And Steve, my husband, who loves the news in all forms, things that he agrees with, things he disagrees with, and he will vet the highlights for me. And I really love that. So that's kind of where I'm at now. So I think the day that Trump posted the video, the first thing that I saw was from a different friend, not you. One of my friends sent me a text and she was like, did you see, and she kind of filled in the blank. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what is she talking about? So then that kind of tipped me off, like, okay, there's something going on online that is worth my attention. So I was grateful to that friend who texted me that. Yeah. And I think originally I read an article, I saw comments, but I didn't go to like the actual video. I saw a screenshot of the Obamas. So I understood the context. I was like, I don't feel ready to even watch this whole thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm, and so I kind of like put down my phone. And then I think around that same afternoon, in those same hours, like you and I started texting about it. I think a few days later was when I decided, okay, let me watch the actual video. Mm-hmm. Let me look into what the administration is like saying, how they're responding, and blah, blah, like actual news about it. But that's kind of how it rolled out into my life. Yeah. How about you? How did you find out about it?
Quick side note. You said actual newspaper. Do you actually
you
get newspaper?
There is a newspaper kid who delivers our newspaper in a bag, like tosses it. I don't know if he drives a car. Yeah, is that crazy?
Yes, that's crazy. What age are you living in?
No, I know. Which sounds a little funny because I think Steve at some point a few years ago, maybe it was in like 2016 when like fake news and a lot of things were kind of threatening real journalism. Yeah. Which is still true today. Yeah. Uh-huh. But there was Steve was like, let's start paying, I don't know, whatever, $5, $10. I honestly don't know what we spend on our local newspaper, but we're like, let's support our local journalism. And at first I was like, what, who cares? And then I realized like there was actually a point to that. And so I'm like glad he decided that. The other thing that I have now been grateful for is like real journalists, right? Like there's like real time vetting what gets put into a physical newspaper to get printed the next day, right? Versus literally the cesspool of news / response / comments right. / everyone's opinions that is online. Mm-hmm. And it just is a different beast. Yeah. So anyway, that's my little side note on why we get the newspaper.
I love that. I need to look in and see if we have a local newspaper because I love that idea. I love the idea of actually holding something like that. That's okay. Yeah. I wanted to bring out that bit because you just said that like very matter of factly, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is
newspaper.
A newspaper. That was back novel. In my day.
I know, we're like old people.
Like back in my day. Yeah. So I was actually in a board meeting that morning, mm-hmm. and because I think it came out like the night before or something, like, and I was asleep if I'm remembering like when the timestamp was for it came out. And then that morning I was in a board meeting and an online thing, and we were there for like 4.5 hours. So I was just completely oblivious to anything. Mm-hmm. And when I'm in a meeting or I'm on a session or something, I put my focus thing on my my system. for like it's like work status. So like literally nothing, no one can get through. So there was no notifications, nothing. And once I was done, I checked my phone just to see, what happened for those 4.5 hours. I was like absent from the world, and I had all these messages coming up on my phone about it. And did you see this? And I can't believe this. And, seeing notifications from different like news sources and whatnot. And I was just inundated with like, what happened right now? And I looked at it, and I literally could feel my body have and it still brings an emotion to me. My physical body has such a response to it. It's like I could feel my heart racing. Like it's like just pounding in my chest. And it wasn't even like pounding with anger. It was literally pounding with fear. Like I just felt this fear, and I felt my body just get really just like warm and hot and like shaking. And I just felt like it was just a moment of just being paralyzed in this vacuum of fear when I saw that, and then quickly got out of that, and which I am currently working on my ability to move so quickly out of a strong emotion. I'm learning how to sit with it a little bit longer. So work in progress on that one. But I did shift pretty quickly out of that into, I have people right now who need me. How do I start to show up? Who do I need to check on? What's going on? And I just quickly shifted into that mode. But I was just, and I remember there was something happening with the board, like after the meeting, asking some questions and whatnot. And I just went on the group thread and was really honest with them. Hey guys, I'm just letting you know, I am going to be MIA from any of this stuff for like a day or so, because I am really ticked off right now. And I explained what it was that I was upset about. And, they were aware of it, and they, were very like warm and gracious in their words. But that was like a boundary I had to set right there. I just knew I couldn't go into business mode in that moment. But yeah, it hit like a whirlwind after that meeting. And it was such a good meeting. I felt like, oh my goodness, we were like, I felt positive, felt energized, and then to see that my phone had been blowing up with all of this. So yeah.
How we were saying like, okay, the immediate, just the instinctual, what happens. You're describing, for me and for all of us who are bearing witness to that, like you're describing like a visceral, like a physical body somatic reaction.
Yeah.
And and you said, but there was like a real quick shift, right? And into a different mode. And the different mode, I'm going to put words to this and you tell me if this is accurate. Like, was the different mode like caretaking, like mama bear energy? Like, my people need protection. My people who are maybe more vulnerable than you yourself. And so you kind of make a shift.
Absolutely.
Is that how you describe it?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that?
Absolutely.
Can you imagine not having that shift happen? Do you, like, what would it have felt like, or maybe been like, and this is imaginatory, right? Or like, I'm kind of putting out like a scenario that didn't actually happen, but like, what do you think might have happened if you had not shifted in that version and just let it, I don't know, kind of fully happen? What would the fully happen version be?
That is what I am in the process of exploring for me. I think most of my life has been spent operating out of a place of caring for other people. Mm-hmm. And I don't say that in with any sense of like bitterness or resentment or whatnot. Mm-hmm. I think it's also just a very natural part of who I am. But like anything, things can be great and be a blessing, but there can be a side to it that may not be healthy. Mm-hmm. And so most of my life has been about like caring for other people in one way or the other. And then the strong emotion, also what I am currently discovering, and I'll just say for our listeners, this is like real time, that I am in this place right now and learning these things about myself. It's very vulnerable to feel that, and to protect, I'll speak for myself. In order to protect myself, I can't allow for that kind of vulnerability to happen. Mm-hmm. And if the thing that's triggering that is something that could pose a danger, because I looked at an image, like you'd see an image like that, and now I'm wondering, does this give permission now for people, maybe in my direct community where I live, to make jokes like this? Like, my brain is working so quickly in assessing all of the all the data that comes with something like this, based on what has been happening currently and what has already happened historically.
Right.
Before my birth, during my childhood, like, so patterns that I am physically connected to, stories that are not just in the history books, but these were my parents, these were my grandparents, so these were actual real stories that you're sharing at the dining table. So I'm looking at all of that, and all of that data is coming together, and I cannot afford to have this strong emotion right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't get the luxury of that. That's what my messaging is telling me. You don't get the luxury of having this kind of a strong emotion. You need to get together. You need to be able to protect yourself. You need to check in on each other, because we don't know what the outside like onslaught is going to be, that what's coming up. And so, but at the same time, that sounds great and novel. Just because I shut it down doesn't mean that it's still there. I mean, obviously we're talking and it came out, and it hasn't come out in the last few days. So I was like, so this kind of took me for, surprise, not surprise, but I am currently working on it. I am literally meeting with a somatic therapist once a week now to help me with connecting with strong emotion. And those were my words to her, that my body has absorbed so much. I don't know what the breaking point looks like. And this was prior to this thing coming out, and I'm like, I don't know what the breaking point looks like. I know it probably won't be pretty, and I would like that to not happen. So help me figure out, how do I actually not move so quickly past the emotion, the strong emotion. But so I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I really don't know what that would look like. The idea is honestly a little scary for me to.
Yeah.
If
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. It's scary. It's unknown. So it's unknown. And like you said, this is stuff that you're allowing some concerted energy and space to like give attention to. But I think how you described like what happens when our bodies and our emotions and our spirit, like just all of who we are there's something that triggers that kind of visceral reaction that's like, it's not I chose to feel this, it's I'm feeling this. And it's unexpected, it's uncontrollable, and like I don't know, there's something, I mean, you said so much there, but I think part of it is the historical context, the intergenerational, what gets passed through real bodies, real people, real family systems, and what's in we're in America, and right, as women of color. So you and I have different identities in that sphere, but one way that we hold it in common is we're both women of color on American soil, and there's so much context. This isn't, like you said, there's patterns and context and history that is real, that's real in our bodies, not a blip on a timeline in a textbook or a graph on a paper. Oh, this happened to a group of people one time, 200 years ago. No, like,
right, not some outlier situation that we're fixating on. Right.
So I feel like I'm hoping that people can hear the weight of that and how multi-layered it is, right? It's okay. How do you address that, or how do you make space for that? Anyway, I'm digressing, but.
No, you mentioned something though about the whole like historical context to it. And, a lot of the stuff comes rushing in all at once in real time. And I also can understand that there may be some who don't fully understand how like terrible something like that is. Part of the reason why I'll say that I can understand why maybe some people may not fully get it is not all history that's being taught is as inclusive in a lot of information, right? A lot of like real lived experience, and more is starting to get diluted. So, yeah, I'd love to talk a little bit about just some of the historical context of an image like that and why it's so.
Yeah. Can I ask wait, real quick? Yeah. I mean, I like where this is going.
Okay.
And I know this was kind of the intention, and I feel fine to go there. I also will say we are people with, most of us have access to the internet and to Google. And therefore, and books and the library. Like there are so many places of growing information.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can just like pick up any book or any, right, like any Google search and trust it all. I'm just saying the moment somebody in front of me or somebody on the news says, hey, this is harmful to my community, and I don't like it, and it didn't feel good, or I'm angry about this thing, this word that I was called, or I'm angry that so-and-so. The moment I don't understand, I don't need to like have everybody else educate me. Like I can go to Google and ask, why are people so incensed or angry or sad about X, Y, and Z? And that can be the beginning of some learning. And I just want to like tack that into this conversation. Yeah. Like, I think, okay, I'm getting a little riled up. There are times when I have energy to like teach somebody or to explain something. And that I can do that with friends. I can do that when I have that kind of energy. There are times I'm like, you should have just Googled it. Just Google it and then come back to me with some questions. Yeah. And anyway, we live in an age where information is at our disposal. I agree with you. There are people who are in their little, I don't know, siloed communities or spaces of information, and I feel for them, but I also think it can, by like a couple actions, that can change.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Anyway.
No, and I agree. I think that there needs to be a continuing telling of the stories. And my hope would be that people would take the time to do the research and try to gain understanding, especially with the access that we have to information, as to, okay, what does this mean? I mean, like we could Google, we've got Chat GBT now. I mean, how many more resources that we, do we need? And so that would be my hope. My encouragement would also be that when I look at cultures that have been around longer than like us as like Americans, right? Mm-hmm. The bearer of stories. Mm-hmm. There's such an important role for them in the community to keep. That's what kept like the people alive, and they're keeping them rooted to each other and to their ancestors, right? To the telling of the stories. And so, there's a time and a place for all of that. And so that's how I see this right now, that we're the bearer of the stories right now. We're going to keep the stories going, no matter who and what is trying to take them out of history books, censoring books, museums, and, national parks and whatnot, that we're going to keep the stories going. But yeah, I agree. Like, we have resources, guys, like we can use them.
Yeah. No, and that is, I agree with you. Like, let's make some space right now for that, and kind of adding some historical context, and then how it feels, I think, how it sits with us. So, yeah. You want to take it away? You want me to add to what you say?
And like I said, we're not probably going to, I don't know if I said this here or not, but like, this is not going to be getting into like dates and like things of that sort. And if you're someone who's really driven by like hard data, then you're probably going to just be bored from our conversation. This is really talking more about this real-time, real-life connection and experience of how this impacted us. But with that said, part of what impacted, me, because I always want to be careful not to speak for everybody, just because we're all, people of color, but was that like this whole image of connecting Black people with monkeys is one of the biggest reasons that was given to justify their enslavement. Mm-hmm. These are not actual human beings, so of course they can be used in this way. In the ways that they were used and enslaved, the experiments that were done on them. If you do some reading and research into the whole space of gynecology, just the whole thing of how the women were experimented on, that give us a lot of the practices that we do now for women's health. But the enslaved women were used in a way because it was believed that they didn't need anesthesia for any of these procedures. Imagine some of the procedures we've had to go through, women, without any kind of anesthesia, because this is not a human being that is here. They could be bought, they could be sold. Family units didn't matter because, again, they're not human beings. You have, 2 dogs, they have puppies. What do you do with the puppies? You sell the puppies, right? You have you do all, or you give them away or something and then even to the point that when they're eventually, there's the war and now they're freed. They were only partly considered human, and so this kind of rhetoric was partly what was used to justify them being enslaved and enslavers continuing to enslave people. And I use that language carefully because I know we like to, we usually say things like slave owners and we say slaves. And I really would like to challenge people to shift that language, because using the language of slave owner is like a positional title. You're almost justifying this thing, opposed to it being an act that was done. They were enslavers. This was an act that was done on somebody else's body. And then the enslaved versus slaves. Slaves, again, is like this identity. This is who you're supposed to be. Yeah. Opposed to enslaved is an act that was done against you, against your body. When we use those kinds of language, we are now owning the sin of our country. That, you know, obviously we're not there anymore, but it doesn't do us any good to try and like water it down and hide the grievousness of what happened, you know? So in case anyone's wondering why I'm using language like that, that's like my little side note as to why we're doing it. But, and I will say, like, on a personal note, how that history kind of ties into like now. I know, like, as I was being raised, there was a real intentionality about us as kids, our performance, the way we carried ourselves, that was beyond the norm of you want to be respectful, and no, you don't want to like be going crazy in the classroom, and like those are all like normal things as parents raising our kids. No, you know, you want to be respectful, be mindful, like all those things. For our household, and I know for a lot of other people, it was beyond that norm because of how you were being viewed based on the color of your skin, which again goes back to the whole monkey thing. So you had to work extra hard to like make sure you know what everything means at the fancy table, like that you are a civilized person, and you know, the person next to me, the kid next to me, could be running all over the place and doing all things, and they get a little bit of grace of like, oh, they're, you know, a kid and whatnot. But if I did something like that, it was different. Like my parents would be like, no, you can't do that, because it gets connected. It's just this history that just stays in your body, and it gets carried down, that you can't just be a rambunctious kid when you're 6 years old or something. So
yeah, you're talking a little bit about the trauma response of exceptionalism, which like kind of shoot higher so that you're treated like a human,
right,
with regards to these people who are already dehumanizing you, or our people, or our community. And so to even survive, we need to be exceptionally whatever, fill in the blank, well behaved, well dressed, right? Don't look at that person wrong, or else, right, which is like real, like, depending on where you are, depending on what you look like, the color of your skin, there's real threats to your survival. And so, I'm just, that's,
which again,
so complicated.
I mean, someone listening to this could be like, well, you know, that's, we want all our kids to be that way. When they go into a store, we want them to be careful that they're not breaking anything, or that they're not putting things in their pockets. Like, yes, 100%. That is how we would probably be with like all of our kids. The difference is what is driving that. And in our family, a multi-ethnic family, when I was growing up, it was that obviously you're trying to raise mindful kids, and the fear and the battling against of the historical way of being viewed, and that it was still happening real time in these different ways, and the stories you were hearing that was happening to other people, and just didn't necessarily talk about it as openly because you're trying to assimilate in a way, but it was being driven by that underlying fear. And so that's where the difference starts to come in. Is it just about wanting to raise mindful kids, or is it also being driven by a real fear of your identity? Right.
And I think you and I mean, there's so much that we could talk about there of like being ourselves, right, in our own experiences, and what we look like. And then our kids and our parenting of our own families, right? The ones that we are parents of. And Steve and I, so Steve is white, I'm Chinese. Some of our biological kids, depending on the context, they can look and appear white. They can look and appear not white, right? Like biracial or mixed or Asian. That's a whole, right? That's how the world sees them, or who looks at them and what they perceive.
Right.
And then our adopted son is Filipino and Black. And that's a whole different, so even as a parent, I am thinking, I'm very hyper aware how my son, our eldest son, Aaron, how the world probably will see him.
Yeah.
And how the world will probably see our youngest is different.
Yeah.
And that comes with different possible scenarios, different fears that I have as a mom, and right, different things to navigate. And anyway, just, we're kind of getting into like race bias and honestly fear that kind of is like enmeshed in all of this whole conversation. And I think going back to kind of the original, like what Trump posted and what like kind of the reaction that elicited in your body, it's grievous if anybody has a thought like, well, I'm going to equate this human body to a monkey, okay, or an ape or a gorilla. The fact that it was the person at the highest level of leadership is like also a different, nuanced version.
Yeah.
And what does that say about what our country is okay with?
Yeah.
What does that say about what leaders can and can't do, and what permission is given? And I don't know, I think that stirs up a lot of fear and questions for many folks that I think you're kind of highlighting as you're talking about it. But
so how for you and your family dynamic, how did you guys carry this? What was the impact for you guys? Because it's a multi-ethnic family, right? And like exactly like you said, like depending on, it's the same thing that happens for us, depending on who we're standing next to, sometimes depending on how we're doing our hair, we look a particular way. You just it's just the way you're flowing in and out of things. And then as a mom of your kids, like what did this feel like for you?
Yeah. Confusing. I think that's the main word. I think it's more just a flood of like how do I feel about what's happening? And I think honestly, like it feels like every day there's something that is trauma layered onto the trauma. So
girl,
I'll be real, like I'm exhausted.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like it's exhausting to even allow yourself to feel anything at some point. And I'm not saying that this is a great response. I'm saying like I'm real tired, and there are times when I'm like I don't even know what to do.
Response. Yeah.
So I'm like kind of checked out a little bit. But I think as parents, so like I think Steve and I, I think we are trying to figure out like what's going on for us as we process like where we're at in our country and what's happening and the cycle of news and all of that. And then, there are times when, I'm always thinking and feeling as a mom. But there are times when we bring things up at the dinner table with our kids. Like, hey, this thing is happening. We want to have a conversation about it. Or like, were you aware that, right? And two of our older kids are in in the stage of life where they're more aware of the news or more aware of things going on that are outside of our house and our school, right? So oftentimes they'll come home now and they'll be like, Mom, did you see that this happened? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then they have their own opinions and thoughts. So I think I really love this stage of life that our older ones are in, where we get to kind of figure it out as a family. I think we also, back to what I was saying about our youngest, I think that all of us in our family are aware that his experience is going to be really different than ours.
Right.
And so I would love for us to continue to learn, like, okay, what is the context that he's growing up in? And like, what would it be like to continue to support him and for ourselves, like take our own learning and curiosity and openness beyond our own lived experience into other people's and other communities. That to me feels now personal. And so like, it's not just, it would be a good thing for me to do, to learn like why that Obama post was so awful and so harmful.
Right.
Not that I didn't know, but like, right, like, why would that be important?
Yeah.
Well, it's important to, be a good friend and citizen and, community member to people in our lives, but it also impacts how I help our kids.
Yeah.
And that to me adds the additional layer of responsibility. Am I even answering your question?
No, you are, because you're in a different stage of life than I am in terms of like the ages of your kids, right?
Yeah.
And so my kids are older, and these are very frequent conversations that we have because they're, late 20s now. And so but your kids are coming of age in their awareness. And so what I'm hearing is formation that's happening for you with them right now. That as they are hearing, they're more aware of the world outside of their home and their parents, their siblings and cousins and whatnot. Oh, there's this whole world out there. And look at all that's happening. The dining table is becoming the place of spiritual formation that's happening right now. It's similar to the grandmas who were doing the little girl's hair on the porch, or the abuelitas making the tamales while the grandkids are sitting at the table separating the corn husk or banana leaves, depending on which country you're from. That a lot of that would happen. That's what your dining table is becoming. It's a place to have these honest conversations and to hear their thinking. And I know, like, you guys have shared just the way that you were very open to your kids being able to express themselves and the way that they feel like they need to express themselves when they're with you. So it just like they're not having to like be closed up and afraid to be able to really share with you guys. And so I think that's a way of being able to navigate a lot of these things. And my hope would be that we can continue doing that with our families and having these conversations. Let me ask you, there's this whole idea of intent versus impact. And this can happen, and this happened in this situation, but it also can happen in other situations. Well, that's not what I meant. And we focus on that, the intent. Well, it was really, a video about this, that, and the other. I didn't, that wasn't like the main thing of it. Or intent, and aid was the one that, put that out there, all of that. And and any focus that was coming to the impact, at least at the date of this recording, any focus on the impact was met with a criticism, and it's just what was it? False rage or something like that. Nope, not going to apologize for that. Nope, that didn't do anything wrong. That was the focus when it came to, that was the attention that was given to the impact. Again, as of the date of this recording, something maybe will change. Well, I don't know. So what was your, I guess, view, or how did you hold that? What do you think about the whole, do we focus on the intent? Do we focus on the impact? How do we balance the two?
Yeah, there's so much nuance to that. I think, okay, my gut reaction.
Tell me, Larissa. Take a sip of your tea first.
Let's take a sip. Let's hydrate. Honestly, I think there's space for both to be acknowledged. I would hope that we live in a world where it's just one or the other. Oh, just because you didn't mean to, oh, you get a pass. Or just because that person was hurt, that automatically assigns what I intended to do. I honestly just don't think that is how real trust and healthy relational dynamics actually occur, right? So let's take it out of the race stuff, or out of whatever Trump said today and yesterday and last week. Okay. Right. If I do something and say something to you, my friend Brenda, and you come back and say, that didn't feel good, Larissa. Here's how it felt.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. Okay. The moment I say, well, I didn't mean to do it, first of all, that's taking all the attention from the person who got hurt, you in that scenario, to I'm automatically now directing the attention back onto me. So, that's weird.
Right.
That seems unreasonable and unhealthy and kind of egotistical, right? It also, again, it's playing into this idea that it's one or the other. So what if, before I respond with my defense and excuses or reasons, maybe they're valid reasons why I did the thing I did and said the thing I said. Okay, hold on, Larissa, slow your roll. Listen to the person in front of you. They are hurt. And so what can deal with that, right? I can deal with, oh man, I hurt this person. They're hurt. When somebody's hurt, I would love to be the kind of human to respond to that, to help them feel better, to acknowledge that, to not minimize and erase that. So that's a strange dynamic that I do think is easy to fall into. Anyway, once somebody describes the impact of something that was harmful, I honestly feel like it's not that hard to listen to them, to acknowledge what happened, and, deal with that first. I think that's first. Next, right? I can apologize. I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm so sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you please forgive me? I will try not to do that again.
Right.
Okay. That's simple, right? I'm just modeling a apology and a repair. And then if there was a reason or something else that person who on the receiving end doesn't know that maybe would be helpful to know, then I can communicate that. But that's that's later, or that's after.
Right.
And, I don't know. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
No, I 100% agree. I think that there is room for both. If you have people who are coming and they're saying someone comes and they are deeply wounded by something, I said or did, and they tell me, me just expressing my intent, it doesn't do anything, right? And exactly like what you said, and then, apologizing, because I've also, heard this way of saying it, like, oh, I'm sorry that you felt hurt. It's a way of taking it away again from me holding responsibility. This is on you that you felt hurt. It is a deeper place. And I know that's hard, because there have been times I've been in situations where what that person was feeling hurt about was like, but I was telling them that, like, the truth of something. They were asking me, and I said the truth, and now all of a sudden they're hurt. Okay. It is a place of humility to be able to say, okay, there's something I said, I did, like, I'm sorry, I hurt you. Yeah. And if maybe those things come into play, I can ask, help me understand, right? And we can get into the nuts and bolts of it. You asked me this and I responded this way. So help me understand, was there something in what I said and how I said it, when I said it, so that I don't hurt you again. Help me understand this, right? That is an emotionally intelligent, mature conversation to have. There's the both.
Yes. And okay, so we're getting into territory, like, I don't like the feeling that I messed up.
No,
like, that, to me, that whether or not it was intentional or accident or whatever, that's like my worst nightmare, to be confronted with how I screwed up.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that, and it's taken me practice and work on myself and therapy and practice apologizing to my kids or my husband or friends. I'm not, like, I've given stupid apologies or non-apologies. I've done things, like, pretty poorly in the past. And I'm like, I think a huge hang up in those moments was I didn't like the feeling of somebody calling me out or pointing out something that I did wrong, whether or not that was valid. And so I just wonder, I'm going to float this out there for all of us, like, where are you at with being able to just honestly see a way that you messed up and own it? And I'm not assuming that we all have great practice at that. And maybe that wasn't modeled to us, right? So, but I feel like, and this goes into the public discourse right now, like, I think most humans don't have that muscle built very deeply or, practiced in real life, and certainly not in the public sphere when your job might be on the line, or when people's public perception of you actually matters. So I'm not giving that a pass. I'm just saying that's just an observation about life and humans. It takes practice to be able to apologize. And I think most of us need more practice. That's it.
I could not agree more. Here, two things with that. One, I think that is a very valid observation, because why is it that we're always in so much awe when a leader, in any kind of, space, whether it's in politics or in your local church or in your, school or something like that, a leader actually says, you know what, I messed up, I'm sorry. And, and I'm, obviously reducing the words that are there. But when that happens, there's this, like, oh my goodness, I can't, like, I'm so much respect for this person, because that's not the norm. And so I think that is very much a valid observation. The other part is how many of us were raised with, when we were in a conflict with either our siblings or another student, and we were told, say you're sorry. And so then so we would say, sorry. And that's it, right? And then if they were extra diligent, no, say the whole thing. I'm sorry. And then your top tier was, look them in the eyes. I'm sorry. And then you run off, right? So we've learned to maybe just say words, but not really sit with the holding of what the impact was on this fellow human being, and exploring, what was my intent? Where was that coming? Was I coming from a rushed place that I didn't fully look at this thing? And you know, and
Right.
that tells me something about my pace, or, you know, who's around me or whatnot. Or am I coming from a place where there is racism and there's prejudice and there's, you know, all of this stuff? Like, we weren't, no, say you're sorry.
No. Yeah.
Sorry.
Right. And so, yes, that's how I was raised too. And honestly, I've probably done that to my kids, right? You know, in
same
that
here, raising
version,
my hand.
like just do the transactional,
Yeah.
just say the words. It doesn't actually matter if you reflected on that or not.
Yeah.
But I feel like the version that we're talking about, it's harder work.
Yeah.
It takes more self-reflection, but what ends up, and it's slower, right? It's just, maybe you need to sit with it for 3 days.
Yeah.
And then come back. And I wonder what would happen if we gave one another the grace to actually be able to do that, right? So again, going back to what happened, you know, the thing that we're talking about, like, right, the response or the reactions become very like, the temperature gets dialed up to very high, and then maybe people are clamoring for, where's the apology? And I'm not saying that that's wrong.
Yeah.
But that is a pace that is different than, here's what hurt, and I would love for you to be able to sit with that and get back to me in a couple days. What if we did that? I'm laughing because I'm not sure if that even works. I'm sure there's like downsides to that.
I guess I'm going to the comment section, and I'm thinking about if that would have been the response, like, give me a couple of days to like reflect on what it was I did. The comment section would have still obliterated in him. Like,
yeah, and maybe it wouldn't work. Maybe it wouldn't work in that version. But to me, like, going back to like, if you were to say to me as your friend, like, I messed up or I hurt you, I honestly do think that a way it could go is, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, me immediately apologizing and letting you know, like, I think there's more for me to sit with that.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if we, you know, if there's more to talk about a little later, like, is that okay? And then we could kind of, you know, talk. And I'm sure, you know, the response would be like, yeah, of course.
Right.
We can come back to this. This doesn't have to be this 2-second interaction,
Exactly.
right? We can actually let it breathe a little bit for better growth and learning. And
that comes from a place of humility, that there is still more for each of us to learn, that we don't have all the answers, that we're not going to always get it right. If, you know, I think it is something telling about a person who won't apologize, who won't own mistakes, who won't hold the pain of other people, is something very telling about that in any kind of space. So I would just caution anyone, if you're in a relationship with people that are someone that, you know, they will never apologize. They don't, it just like water off a duck's back, people being hurt around them. It's always everybody else's fault. Always, you know, caution, like, not even yellow light caution, red light caution, like alarm caution there.
Right. And what if when we were vetting leaders or trying to make decisions that do, I don't know, maybe we're voting for somebody, what if a question in the interview campaign process is, where's the last time you messed up and how did you respond? Or when was the last time you apologized to somebody, and tell us what you learned from that?
Yeah.
That would be an interesting data point when we're making decisions about leaders to elect, for example.
No, and if they could just not make it such a political answer too, because there's always a way of framing the answer that you're not really answering the question, you know. So, but you touched on something about being curious, and so how do we get into that space of being curious versus reactive? So when this all happened, you know, we shared at the beginning of this that you and I were communicating, and we each knew, like, in our own spaces and in our own ways, there was going to be certain levels of response. and we knew that this particular space of the podcast, that was gonna, this, we wanted to sit with this a little bit longer, right? And so us doing that was us stepping into a place of, okay, let me be curious, let me do the check-in, what this looks like, versus being reactive. And so what are the ways do you think it could look like when something like this happens? Because there's this rush of like, it, you know, things that's being flooded with all the things. And I'm not trying to say don't say anything. I'm just wondering, how do each of us individually just take a minute, breathe, and be discerning. Okay, what does this look like for me right now?
Right.
Or what could keep us from doing that? Maybe that's another question. I would love to take a minute, but I don't. Like, what kind of things are keeping us from being curious and we immediately move into being reactive?
Right. Right. And I wonder, I mean, I can describe what my ideal version for myself, and this is through like lots of learning and lots of mess ups and figuring out what works for me. But I'm saying that to caveat, like, I think everybody's probably going to have their own ways of doing that, and knowing like what's happening inside, right? Like, I think that's, maybe it begins there. Like, just do a check-in before externalizing anything, before like pushing it out where it can affect other people or your space around you. Slow down enough to check with yourself, what's happening inside of me. And maybe that's in the immediate, right? But maybe in the immediate, it actually you don't have the luxury. So whenever, the soonest possible time where you feel you can have some protected space to do a check-in. Maybe that's later that night when you're crawling into bed, right? When all the distractions are gone. I think usually for me, it might be at night when the kids are in bed, when there's like less noise, or maybe the next morning. I have my morning ritual is to like get my coffee or tea, sit down with a notebook or journal, and like kind of stream of consciousness, write down maybe a couple pages worth of thoughts and feelings and things going on. Usually that's my space to like really like kind of check in. So I already have those practices built in. Right. I don't know what everyone else does, but without those kinds of things, I'm not, my reactions are very like, just kind of messy. And that's okay. I'm not saying that's bad. Right. But I do also have my friends, my key friends who like, it's okay to be a hot mess. Yeah. And they get it. So, I mean, you're one of them, Steve, my friend Kathy. Like, I can call or talk to one of you folks and be like, this is me just processing. Don't take me seriously. Like, this isn't me acting on anything, making key decisions. You know me and you know my intent, but I need to like say some stuff. Yeah. And I love that I have those friends or those people in my life. And then later I can figure out like what my more processed reaction is or where I've landed. Yeah. But that's some of how I think I navigate things like that. How about you? I want to hear from you.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love that it doesn't have to be this like clean way of doing it, because it can also be really situational, you know? So, for me, one thing I try to do is I try to be careful on like reposting things. Like, you know, like in this particular situation, my focus moved towards individual people, like the messages I was getting. And so that became more of like community. Like, how can I be there for everyone? That was like the messaging that I was getting. And then just like I did some writing. For me, where writing is where I'm able to process and hold my thoughts. When I'm in a very deep place like that, my writings, the tone even starts to shift in a bit. And in this particular case, that writing turned into like a lament and almost like this prophetic call of, y'all, we need to, what the heck, you know? Which you see a lot of that in the Old Testament as well, right? And so it was that, and it was a reflecting on like, you know, what do I need right now? You know, and what I needed was, I need my people. I need to be talking to people right now that I'm not having to explain anything to, but they're getting it and they're seeing me. And there will be a time and a place for those who aren't quite getting it. And anyone who knows me will know that I am always open to those conversations. But there are times that it's like, I just need to hear from my people. I need to reach out to my people. And if I can just like hold that space for a bit, that will keep me from being reactive. And it'll show me, okay, what can I do now? Something I think about is see, when there's a loss of life, you know, and you know, we've lost people close to us, parents and things of that sort. And you know, most of the time they all show up right when that loss of life happens, right? And they show up maybe for the memorial, the funeral. And maybe they're showing up for like the week or two like after. But everyone who's gone through that knows there comes a moment when they're not showing up anywhere. And again, no shade on them for not showing up anywhere. They all have their lives, right? And now that's when it starts, the next wave of the loss and the pain starts to hit, because it starts to get quiet. And you start to feel and get in your thoughts, and you're no longer distracted by having to make arrangements and people bringing meals, and we're sharing stories, like all the wonderful things. Now it goes quiet. And there are certain individuals, they're rare, but there are certain individuals, but that's where they start to thrive. They may not be all in the mix over here, but they're going to come a couple months later and they're going to check in to say, hey, I know it's probably gotten a little quiet now. How are you doing? That's a rare breed. That's a rare person, right? So I have been trying to also think in that way in the moment, but like also let me get into this creative, curious place of long term, when the noise comes down. And maybe we've moved on, but we haven't addressed what our body just went through, what my spirit just went through, you know, like all of that. Let me be ready for that 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line. How do we do that? And so that's what I've been trying to practice with. I know I'm feeling really pushed to react because everyone else is reacting. And then this is my soapbox. Can I just say, can we just stop telling everybody how they're supposed to react? That if you didn't post, you are not down for the cause. That if you didn't say this, if you didn't say that. Now, I understand there's certain spaces where something should be said, right? Whether it is the heart of the matter. How do we engage in our community in this time of grief? Like, there are certain things that in certain spaces, and I would say in places where there is supposedly spiritual formation happening, something should be said, because this is forming us spiritually. So help me in this formation of how do I hold this? But I'm talking about people like online policing everybody else, that you didn't post something. You didn't put a sign up in your window of your store that, you know, whatever. And can we just not do that? Because it pushes everyone to just react, and that's performative.
Yeah.
So that's my soapbox.
Love it.
All right. So good conversation. Yeah, definitely. We're not living there. We have to transition. We have to, we're still moving forward and having to hold these things. I know after that came out, few days later, was driving to work a retreat in beautiful Malibu. And so it was a nice little drive from where I live to Malibu. And it was like, man, I'm coming in hot from this thing and now into this completely different space. Not really knowing who would know what and who would understand what. Releasing the expectation that anyone would ask me how I'm doing in light of what happened. Because that's something else that can be grieving when this big thing happened and no one asks you how you're doing, you know? So releasing that. And it was that drive was that good place of, okay, God, you know the wounding, you know the grieving that's happening. And there's also hope. So show me right now on this drive how I can trust hope to hold the grieving at the same time. And let me show up in this space right now in the way that you're inviting me to show up, still being true to myself, and being invitational to the people around me. And we're looking at the marathon here, the long haul of how we're going to navigate this whole thing. And so so that was interesting, trying to navigate those two spaces. But that was a practice in not being reactive, but just saying, okay, God, I'm going to release this to you right now. So any final thoughts on staying steady when the culture climate feels a little chaotic around us? Because, there's a lot of stuff going on. So how do we stay steady?
I think different ones of us need different tools. And so maybe even for folks who are in this conversation or listening in, I think honestly, like it takes some like checking in with yourself, and maybe something that Brenda or I have shared in terms of our processing is helpful. Like, oh, I don't really do that, but maybe I can try that. I think thinking about like moving through life from a centered and grounded, healthy space means for you. One, I don't really recommend a ton of books. So I usually just kind of like, because books are so contextual and not everyone, but there is a book that for folks who might want to dive deeper into healing racialized trauma. I feel like we're touching on a lot of things, but there's a book called My Grandmother's Hands that for me personally, it was very helpful to read, and I've come back to it many times just for myself. Through it, and I feel like probably your work with your somatic therapist, it's in similar territory. But I think for me, making my own space to kind of deal with and process real stuff that is generational, that's racialized in my body, all that stuff. Like this book was kind of my intro into some of that world. And since then I've participated in workshops. I'm in a community that kind of went through that book together. But that's a way, like just even as I'm saying that, like racialized trauma, generational trauma, maybe explore that for yourself. And I don't know if that feels foreign to folks. Like I never thought about that. But I believe it's a real thing. It really impacts actual life and actual relationships and actual how I respond to things. But I think that's a way that I personally have been able to explore like how to be settled and tools that I can use to ground myself and to process things better than it turning sideways and re-traumatizing other people. Right. I think that is like maybe the caution. Like if we don't deal with our own stuff, inevitably we're going to like stuff is going to go out of us sideways in ways that we don't intend to do. And that's what happens. That's right. Like, if I'm damaged and unhealed in certain areas, which I am, like, it will affect other people. And I just want to be a person who like deals with some of that stuff, so that what I put out of me and how I treat other people is a better version.
Yeah.
I think
I love that.
a thing. Anyway, yeah, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, I know. I love that. I love that. We'll put that book in our Substack with the author, and maybe a link or something there, because I think that would be great. Because like what you're saying, the whole like recognizing our own brokenness, our own woundedness, like, you know, for me, the whole staying steady, things were chaotic. That was like a goat moment for me, going from this whole situation and now going to Malibu in a very, very different context. And it wasn't going to be this like very calm Zen yoga experience. You got these ghosts that are not going to like, not the people were the ghosts, but the ghosts were the situation, my emotions, like all of the things, right? My thoughts. And so the drive over was me being self-aware and acknowledging my woundedness. Yeah. And the goat is that woundedness that was there. And instead of me trying to push the goat away, it's like, okay, we're traveling this together. What's the way that we can travel this together and you're not constantly jumping on my back? Right. And it's like, okay, fine. Like, you're not going to ignore me. Because sometimes the goat's jumping on me because he wants attention. It's like, you're going to get attention, but you're only going to get attention during these times. Okay, fine. I'll let you, like.
Right.
So.
Right. I like that. And I like, there's like, like kind of seeing and naming, honestly, what's getting us stirred up and agitated. And doing that, just that simple thing, kind of alleviates some of the unnecessary, I don't know, burden of it, or like distraction of it. You're saying like, this thing is distracting, or this thing is happening in me, and I'm gonna just like honor it by calling it out or naming it or noticing it and giving it a little bit of space. But I'm also saying like, you don't get all the space, right? Like, I'm actually shifting into a different situation now, and we'll deal with one another maybe differently later.
It's like it's not right now, and then the later is like clarified. It's not just continuing to put you off. It's just like, not right now, but here's what's going to happen. And then enlisting people to pray for me, or like, knowing what I'm walking into, like, okay, I've got to shift gears. And so being prayerful for me. So enlisting that as well, so. All right. So my friend, what is the most serene-ish moment you've had lately when you were trying to stay grounded, but the world or your group chat absolutely refused? I have one that happened today.
Okay, you share yours first.
I went on a walk. I had a call that needed to get rescheduled, so I had this gap in time, and so I'm like, let me just go on a walk, right? And I was processing some things, and I even did like a Instagram like reel, because I had these thoughts and I wanted to share these thoughts, and felt so wise and spiritual and everything I was sharing. And then you can see the shifting in my face as it's happening. There was this cute dog coming the opposite direction. The owner was out doing some yard work and everything, but his dog, and I think it's an older dog because of the way it was walking, but you literally can see my face changing, that I am like zoning in on this cute dog. And so then I tell everyone, oh, this is a cute dog. And I'm down there playing with the dog. And, and my, my prayer for everything just completely ended. It was like, it became all about the cute dog. And I called it out. It was very much a distracted moment, but I just took it that, you know what? This cute dog, this soft, furry, cute dog really blessed my heart. Maybe it'll bless everybody else's heart too, more than my words would bless their heart. So
yeah, I like that. Well, I like that because a lot of times when you and I talk about the serene-ish or like the goat moments, right, on this podcast or in our conversations, it's like the thing is just purely distracting, and like we have to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
But I love that sometimes it comes in the form of like something, yes, distracting, but like in a fine way, and we can like embrace it, and it can be adorable.
Yes. He was loving all my loving. Every time I pet him, he just kept putting his head like, oh yes, love me.
That's cute. Yeah, I think for me, like yesterday was a day kind of to catch up on some work and some projects that I had intended to do. So I kind of like I said, I did my morning routine. I'm like feeling like, oh, okay, I have a good plan for the day, and here's what I'm going to be doing and getting done. And it, in an unexpected way, it got disrupted by a friend calling me who needed some help. And it was like a valid, like, I need some help and it's kind of urgent. And so, yeah, I think there was a little moment inside of me like, well, I had this plan, but now my attention could be shifted into this direction. And I just did a little check with myself, like, do I have this space for this friend? And yeah, I was like, no, this is a good friend and I'm happy to do it. And it ended up being like a really good interaction. I think I was helpful. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that just reminded me that in our human existence, like the messiness of life often comes with surprises, and that's okay. And we can kind of, shift and be fluid with those things that come up.
Exactly.
Just like a little baby goat.
Yeah. Love it. I love it. All right. Well, we'd love to hear from our listeners, their thoughts on what we talked about today. And Larissa, you had a great idea about either putting it in the chat over on the Substack or emailing us. And do we have the email? Do we have the email on our...
I think it's the Serene-ish podcast @gmail.com.
I think you're right. Yes.
But we can double check that and correct that if that's,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So yeah, the Serene-ish podcast @gmail.com. Email us your thoughts, or, put something in the chat over on our Substack. You can direct message us over on our Substack as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe some of your stories of how like this impacted you, how you navigated it, what you learned from how you navigated it. And again, this is not about shame or, oh, I totally messed up, but these are all opportunities for us to learn and to grow. This was a pretty big, hefty goat that got thrown into the mix. A lot heavier than I think a lot of people could carry. So would love just to hear what the story has been for you in your life and how we can continue to come alongside, at least in our little way, to encourage you and to remember that we'd love to have things to be serene. More often than not, they're serene-ish, and we're in it together. So till next time.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We truly hope something we shared offered you a little bit of encouragement on your journey.
And if you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love to invite you to our Substack, the Serene-ish podcast.
It's where we dive even deeper with extra resources, reflections, and even a community chat where we can all keep the conversation going. Just head to the sereneishpodcast.substack.com and join us.
Until next time, remember to look for peace, even if it's just a serene-ish kind.